Marine Le Pen, France's conservative powerhouse, top contender for the 2027 presidential race, has been banned from running, hit with what smells like trumped-up embezzlement charges straight out of the globalist playbook. And it's not just France. This comes right after Romania's wildly popular right-wing populist Călin Georgescu was sidelined by the courts. Two nations, two conservative titans, both taken out before the fight even begins. What's going on here? Is this a desperate elite striking back at the unstoppable populist wave, or a chilling sign of democracy's collapse? Dr. Steve Turley, a.k.a. the Patriot Professor, author, wildly popular YouTuber with over 1.25 million subscribers at Dr. Steve Turley TV. Steve, welcome back. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm great, Richard. Great to be back with you. Under unfortunate situation for sure, but
yeah. Why France and Romania, two nations with surging populist movements? Why were these two countries sort of ground zero for this crackdown?
it's a good question. I think they've been seeing what's happening in Germany. They see what's happening in Italy. They see what's happening in Hungary, in Poland. And they're trying to put a stop to it. The Vox party's growing in Spain. Geert Wilders has taken over in the Netherlands. Jimmie Åkesson in Sweden. And it seems like the bullies in Brussels are getting really, really nervous here. That's actually what Marine Le Pen was convicted on, is supposedly misusing funds from the European Union. It's really strange. I love how I mean, this definitely seems like it was cooked up particularly to push her out, because basically the European Union gives money to all of these parties in their respective nations, and the European Union doesn't get different parties. It's the same parties that go out and represent the populations of the respective countries. And so the European Union accused Le Pen of mixing the money that she gets from the European Union with her own national party apparatus. This was back when National Rally was National Front. And so she was basically accused of stealing, it would be the equivalent, as I understand, of about $5 million to serve her own national political interests rather than the continental EU interests. And the outrage here is that apparently everyone in the EU does this. I mean, the parties that go and serve as members of the European Parliament are the same parties that serve as the MPs in their respective countries. And the funds get mixed up all the time by everyone. It clearly appears to have been weaponized to block her because she got double the charges. So she was charged as a politician and she a member of the party, and then she was charged as the party chairperson. So she got double the charges, and then they gave her 4 years. I guess 2 were immediately suspended, and the next 2 apparently she could serve under house arrest, but they gave her a 5-year ban, and their next election is in 2027. By all the polls, she was the front runner.
Right. I mean, is this a test case for a broader strategy, do you think, to strangle conservative momentum across the continent? For example, ADF, there were rumblings that maybe they would ban ADF from running in the next election. They didn't, and they did quite well. Turns out, the so-called conservative party over there just ended up forming a coalition with the same old crowd anyway. So what was the point of that vote, one has to wonder. But, I mean, does Nigel Farage have to be looking over his shoulder now, for example?
Yeah, a lot of people point to Giorgia Meloni, for example, of Italy, as being a, quote, disappointment. She was this really awesome populist force, gets into office, and then she really tempers her positions. I think it's precisely because of this. Well, she's looking what happened to Matteo Salvini. He was the former deputy prime minister, head of Lega. He was indicted for kidnapping, Richard. I mean, he was acquitted, but they harassed him for years on criminal kidnapping charges because he refused to allow a boat carrying migrants to dock at an Italian port. And so this court accused him of holding these people, against their will, they could have sailed anywhere else. They didn't have to just stay there. I guess they stayed there for a month, and so they tried to trump up these kidnapping charges. Yeah, I do. I think this is. I mean, they tried it with Trump. You mentioned Georgescu. I think, and they were of course playing with the notion of banning AFD. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is the biggest. This is not, dare I say it, sort of kind of a marginal player in the EU. This is a major player. It's one of the founding nations of the EU, and they just banned their front runner for their upcoming presidential election from being able to run an election. So yeah, I think there's something going on here. The problem is, and we can develop this, I don't think it's going to work long term. It may, Le Pen may have to be sidelined here. But what we found with Trump is every time he was indicted, he got more popular. Even the BBC had to admit that. Every time he was dragged into these kangaroo courts, his poll numbers went up, and he went on to win probably the biggest landslide victory we've seen since Reagan in 1984. Bush 88 was a little bit strange in that he was actually borrowing from Reagan's coalition that just quickly unraveled in 92. Whereas Trump really assembled his own coalition that's about as big, although given our demographic changes, you're not going to get 49 states anymore. He couldn't. Reagan wouldn't be able to do that today. But I think I don't think it's a coincidence that Trump did so incredibly well when the first president in a couple of generations to sweep all 7 swing states. I don't think it's a coincidence that happened after 4 indictments.
Yeah, every single county in the country moved to the right.
Yes.
I think without exception, every single county. So getting back to Le Pen for a moment. So she's out. What then is the future of National Rally and the populist conservative movement? Can her young protege, Jordan Bardella, carry the torch and turn this setback into a populist triumph, or will the establishment target him next?
Yes. I'm going to say yes to both. I think the more they target them, just the more popular they get. So it's this her possible replacement, though she has not endorsed him yet. She said she's going to still fight this, but is the Gen Zer Jordan Bardella. And ironically, he's even more right wing than she is. He plays very well with Gen Zers, voters under the age of 30. As a matter of fact, the National Rally gets some of their strongest support from the Gen Z crowd, as most of the so-called far-right party, what we just would call a Patriot Party, throughout Europe get. It's more the boomers. It's the post World War II crowd. They're the ones who actually still have it all in with the establishment. The younger voters, they don't care. They actually kind of like the sort of punk rock sense of voting for the so-called far right. Yeah, he's the next one in line. He was already instrumental in organizing for their European vote at the beginning of last summer, if I recall, right before Emmanuel Macron called for these snap elections, parliamentary elections in the middle of the summer to try to, again, box the so-called far right out of power. So, yeah, he'll probably face the same kind of lawfare and weaponized legalism and the like. But again, to me, my argument is it only makes populist parties stronger, because populist parties, they're not so much ideological as they are structural. So they realign the divide of politics. So we normally think of the political divide as a horizontal divide, left versus right, liberal versus conservative, that kind. But what populists do is they realign that divide around a vertical divide, the people versus the political class, the ruled versus the rulers, the ordinary citizen versus the oligarch. And they do that because they're convinced there's really not a dime's worth of difference between the two mainstream parties. And so they really see themselves as against this more elitist aristocracy that rules for their own affluence and power, and often at the expense of the values, interests, concerns of the people. When courts pull stuff like this, it only serves to corroborate and confirm why you have that realigned politics, why you have that vertical divide. It only serves to confirm that the elites are indeed corrupt, and that you are most certainly justified in seeing them as the problems, not the left versus the right. It's the people versus the political class. And so when they pull stuff like this, it only corroborates the very claims and concerns of the populists.
And when they pull stuff like this, they really are playing with fire, because I think the potential here, the risk here, is that people will decide at some point, better an honest autocracy or an honest dictatorship than a dishonest democracy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And again, we're seeing it just in increasing frequency. They and everywhere. They did it to Bolsonaro in Brazil. They banned him for however many years. I read Moldova did the same thing to a pro-Russian opposition party there. They banned them. When's the last time Ukraine had an election? I mean, ironically, Russia's had more elections in the last 3 years than Ukraine has. You know, you mentioned the AfD. I mean, this is this is a playbook. And then we're even seeing it here in the States, where Trump is being sort of hamstrung by these activist judges. So it's very interesting, because in the end, liberals define democracy differently than patriots do. Patriots will define democracy as the rule of the people, just like the word means. Demos, kratos, right? The rule of the demos, the rule of the people. But for liberals and elites, they define democracy as literally the rule of the oligarchy. So they take votes, and they have discussions and deliberations and so forth. But then once they've set up this intricate globalist system through all these institutions that we didn't elect, like the IMF or the WTO and the World Bank and the EU and all that, who are you, oh patriot, to come and unravel that? We worked hard on that. That took us many, many hours and long hours of deliberation. For them, that's democracy. That's democracy. And we just have to sit there and accept that we don't have a place at that table. So it is autocracy by a different name in many respects.
Wow, that's such a great explanation of what's happening. I mean, we have our own caretaker prime minister up here, Mark Carney. Someone uncovered an op-ed piece he wrote, I believe it was in the Globe and Mail in 2022. It turns out he was the one that was really pushing for the trucker convoy, the Freedom Convoy, to have their bank accounts frozen. He was the one accusing them of sedition. This is the guy, and he was Trudeau's advisor. So,
wasn't he doing it from across the pond as well? Wasn't he in Europe when he was pushing all that?
Yes, or New York or someplace, anywhere,
or New York.
Yes, riding around on one of his 3 passports. Who knows? And yet he'll stand up there with a straight face and say the Liberals are the party of the Charter of Rights. It's unbelievable. So are you still, given what's happening around the world, in France, in Romania, here in Canada, are you still the patriot professor who's gonna make us feel good?
I am. I admit for those very reasons. Again, like we had here, we had 4 years of wilderness for Trump, but then he came back stronger than ever, and we could see why. We can understand, because again, all it was doing was confirming and corroborating the concerns of so many, and therefore only ends up growing those concerns. So no, I think this is sort of, I gotta say, I think this is the last stand in the end. They thought they could convince the masses. They thought the masses would come out and vote for them. I mean, Macron had to pull so many shenanigans over the summer with that election to keep Marine Le Pen's National Rally out of the majority. They were either going to get a majority or get the plurality of votes, and then probably coalition with the Republicans, and they would have had a nationalist populist coalition, just like Italy does. He had to engage in so many shenanigans. I think he got 200 of his own MP candidates to pull out and then turn around and endorse this far left coalition party, the New People's Party, whatever they're called. And so the only way they can win is to engage in shenanigans. And when they know that, and they know, you know what, now we have the most, they've got the most tumultuous parliament in decades. They've already lost one prime minister because it's an artificial one. It doesn't reflect the will of the people. There's no coherent coalitions that can be created. And so in the end, I think they've just come to the end of the rope, and all they've got are a bunch of judges that they appoint who are going to protect not the rule of law, but the rule of the elites. But we all know it's you're on borrowed time. If the people aren't with you anymore, just ask the Berlin Wall, just ask the Soviet Union. Your time is going to come to an end.
Well said. Dr. Steve Turley, the Patriot Professor, and you can find him on YouTube. Again, over 1.25 million subscribers. It's a real juggernaut. At Dr. Steve Turley TV, and the website turleytalks.com. Steve, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. God bless.
God bless you. Hey, this is Richard Serrett. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe.